designer drugs, or drugs that are specifically made to pass these tests. Not only are they made to pass these tests, but they are constantly being reformulated and re-engineered to stay ahead of the testing curve.
Now, is anyone using things like the clear or synthetic designer anabolics in the NBA? No, they're not. No one's shutting down their HPTA in order to use a designer anabolic steroid in the NBA. That would be dumb. However, you know, designer drugs like designer HGH products that have not the kilodalton variant that is literally the test is designed for, that is already inaccurate at picking it up. Now that's the kind of thing that would qualify as a designer drug in the NBA that might actually make sense to deploy. What's up guys, Derek, moreplaysmoredates.com. Today we're going to be talking about LeBron James and his speculated performance enhancing drug use in the NBA. So this is a video that's been highly requested for years at this point on my channel, and it's been on my to-do list for a while. And interestingly enough, it seems like somebody actually got around to making a fairly comprehensive video on this already in 2018. And it's actually a pretty big channel. It's, I don't know what, JXMY High Roller. So this is a channel that publishes a lot of NBA specific content. And interestingly enough, he kind of delved into the speculation around LeBron's PED use, what he may have taken, what red flags were thrown up that would, you know, make you more inclined to believe that he may or may not have done something. I was like, damn dude, like this guy already compiled a lot of the information. So I felt like this is a great video to react to and then just kind of give my commentary on some of the actual scientific discussion behind the performance enhancing drug selection. So I'm going to go through it with you guys. It's a good video, and I'll provide my commentary and interject where appropriate.
It seems like LeBron is not going to be slowing down anytime soon. In fact, it almost seems like he's getting better. But how? What's up everybody, it's Jimmy, and when it comes to sports, Father Time is still undefeated. One day, inevitably every athlete will have to come to terms with the fact that they aren't who they used to be. Every athlete except LeBron James.
See, what's interesting is I remember playing, what year was he drafted? It was like 2003 or something, and I remember playing NBA Live, was it 2003? Fuck, I don't remember, but it was whatever that year was, that NBA Live was like the sickest one. And I'm pretty sure it was one of the first ones with the dunk contest in it and stuff. And it was like the best draft class, because when you played in the rookie game, you got to have like the sickest lineup. And it was just a crazy year for like crazy draft picks. And of the guys in that class, LeBron is the only one that is still fucking killing it and not really slowing down. The other ones are either retired or like definitely not as good as their peak, whereas LeBron is still peaked as fuck. So that is, you know, a huge red flag in itself.
How has LeBron somehow transcended time, halted his aging process, and at one point even got more explosive as time passed? I mean, the man is a freak of nature, yes. He'll go down as one of the best athletes to ever touch a basketball. But there may be more to this story. Now, before I dive any deeper into this discussion, I want to make three things very clear. One, I will be making some very bold theories within this video, but I'm not accusing anyone. Within this video, there will be facts that, when strung together, seem to point to a certain conclusion, but I don't have any proof nor any authority on the matter. Two, if you've been following my channel, you know LeBron James is my favorite player of all time. This is not a knock on my man Bron. This is just an analyzation of a timeline of events that seem to all lead back to the same conclusion. And three, anytime I say the word in this video, I'm gonna censor it. Hey, people at YouTube, if you're watching this, nothing going on here. We're not talking about anything. Move along. Now, back when LeBron joined the league, there wasn't much speculation about his physical abilities. He was young, he was a physical specimen. But then the Miami Miami era happened, and immediately people began to question what they were seeing. His muscle gain, his incredible recovery time, and his ability to play night in and night out with almost no rest. Like usual, people assume the worst. Steroids. Damn. It hurts just to say the word in context with Bron, but let's first look at the facts. For NBA players, there are basically 3 major ways to enhance your physical performance. Steroids, thought to be the drug of choice of all professional athletes, but this is actually not the case for NBA players.
So, when it comes to steroids, it's like how many choices do you really have when it comes to, random drug testing? How smart would it be to deploy a synthetic anabolic derivative of testosterone, which would be an anabolic androgenic steroid? It wouldn't be that smart in the NBA. In addition to that, a synthetic drug, you're going to want to look at bioidenticals. Like, you're not going to actually look at 99% of the steroids out there are not even going to be relevant in the discussion of viable compounds for performance enhancement in a intelligent athlete who may be up for random drug testing and is looking to enhance performance or recovery in the NBA. This would be a poor choice. If you're going to look at anything, it would be bioidentical testosterone at most from the anabolic agents subsection of compounds. Thing I find interesting is how he says there's only 3 things you're going to really look at, which is, I think this guy has no idea.
EPO, a naturally occurring hormone that stimulates the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. Basically, it vastly improves your aerobic capacity.
Okay, so yeah, anything that enhances your hematology profile essentially is going to lead to the same, outcome as what you would get from EPO. But there are different ways and different compounds that you can leverage in order to achieve and kind of like take advantage of this vector. It's not like EPO is the only thing that you can possibly use that is going to be able to enhance red blood cell production, enhance your hematocrit, etc. Like, there's other things you can actually leverage that some of them aren't being tested for, some of them are being tested for, but to narrow it into this one scope and be like EPO is the only thing that's relevant here is definitely not the case.
And HGH, otherwise known as the anti-aging serum. This helps regulate body composition, boosts muscle and bone growth, helps with recovery, and gives athletes a huge boost in energy.
Okay, so HGH, energy booster. Not really, dude. Like, if you've ever used legitimate HGH, you'll know that, especially if you use high doses, it's like the thing that is released in highest quantities when you're sleeping. Like, this is not a hormone that really contributes to like adrenergic signaling or like high energy output. This is something that enhances recovery significantly, but it's not something that's a fucking pre-workout energy booster, that's for sure. It's not an androgenic hormone. It's not going to signal to your brain like aggression outcomes or anything like that. It's something that is going to enhance, like he said, bone growth, one of the main things, enhancing cartilage development, enhancing just reinforcing the structural integrity of the athlete and encouraging longevity. That is essentially what this compound is most useful for. It's kind of like injury proofing the athlete and hopefully extending their career and, avoiding injury and or expediting recovery and ultimately leading to longer, active years playing that you can actually get high quality work output from a lack of body just deterioration essentially. So, and as far as muscle growth, strength outcomes, anything like that, like maybe you might get some improved leverage in the gym from some of the temporary fluid and whatnot, but at the end of the day, there's no strength outcomes to be had from HGH use. There's no significant amount of protein expression that's going to come from its use that is going to take a guy who's not using concurrent anabolics with it and developing a crazy physique and more muscle than normal. A lot of it is just inflated like fluff weight essentially. It's not actually building contractile tissue on its own. It can enhance processes that are eventually going to lead to improved protein expression and actual contractile tissue accrual, but it's not inherently a muscle building compound. And for guys in the NBA who aren't also leveraging anabolics alongside it, that is not the main goal of this compound. The main goal of this compound, like I said, is injury proofing the athlete and enhancing their longevity in the sport. So in LeBron's case, this would be one of the highest priority items of all of them. Now he's narrowed it down to 3 categories of compounds, and he is definitely not considering a lot of things. There are a lot of peptides that are not even being tested for. There's a lot of peptides with low detection times. There's a lot of cognitive enhancing agents that can enhance motor learning. There's a lot of shit you would use in the NBA that is available at your disposal to enhance a lot of things that are not related just to get big and fucking strong.
See, one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to steroid or PED use is that athletes only take them to get swole or to increase their brute strength.
Exactly. So he's basically just saying what I just said, but he's, overlooking many of the categories of compounds that would otherwise be used to enhance other neurological processes, upregulate recovery mechanisms. Like, there's a lot of shit that is not just confined to those 3 categories that he described.
And this is far from the truth. In the realm of basketball, steroids and PEDs can vastly help with recovery time, fat loss, healing after an injury, sustaining high energy levels, and increasing endurance.
Yeah, so obviously when it comes to PEDs, a lot of people, they just think, I don't know, big jacked guy. That's what they think. But in reality, like, you should know by now, if you've seen any of the, like Icarus or anything, like, you could have a guy who's a rail, like Lance Armstrong, and he's super saucy. You don't have to be a big jack guy to be on gear. There's a lot of processes that they upregulate in the body that don't just equal you look like a bodybuilder. You still have to eat and train to become looking like a bodybuilder, and it's a long, several year process. And if you're using these compounds as complementary enhancement tools for your sport in particular, it's not like you're just going to become looking like a guy who's training for something totally different just because you're using a similar compound or something that is the same as a fucking, linebacker or something, So, it's just a misconception that you think, like, anabolics equal this, or this compound equals this. And it's not the case. You'd be surprised at some of the guys at some of the shit they use and what their physiques actually look like as the outcome of those performance enhancing compounds. Like, at the end of the day, in the NBA, some of like the main things are being able to play more games, get more reps in, recover faster, stay injury free. Like, we're not trying to get to 300 pounds of muscle and eat up our oxygen capacity because we're carrying more muscle than we otherwise need. Like, there are different priorities in different sports for different things. And obviously in the NBA, getting massive as fuck is not the priority.
Yes, they'll make you stronger, but in the case of basketball players, that is more than likely the last reason why they'd be using PEDs. Now, back to our story. In Miami, LeBron became more than just a freak of nature. In fact, he became suspiciously inhuman. He gained 25 pounds of almost pure muscle, and he just didn't look the same. Add that to the fact that he only missed 14 games in 4 seasons in Miami, and this is where eyebrows began to raise.
Okay, so did he gain 25 pounds of contractile tissue throughout his career? Highly doubtful. I'm sure if I went back, I would not. I guess at his height, how it was distributed, maybe. But a lot of this is just like temporary. Like, it's not actual dry contractile tissue. Like, you would look like a totally different human with another 25 pounds of muscle on you. So I would be skeptical of that claim. But I do understand where the 25 pounds of lean mass claim would be a bit more relevant, I think.
While his draft class peers and teammates began to slow down, LeBron was getting faster. Rolls his ankle, back the very next game like nothing ever even happened. Plays night in and night out, doesn't miss a beat, not once. And people were taking notice. Some of the effects to HGH use, muscle gain, hair loss, and...
Okay, so looking at hair loss, this is something a lot of people wanted me to make a dedicated video on, is his hair loss. So you have to understand though, like, this is a post that I've had for a while. Name a comeback more epic than LeBron's hairline. He wears a hair system as far as I know. Like, I've seen clips of him and it like falling off in the middle of the game and him like pushing it back on. A lot of this is just age and androgens. If you're prone to baldness, and which is like every fucking person, it's gonna happen. And the rate at which it happens is going to depend on AR density in the scalp, expression, levels of endogenous androgens in the scalp, and overall gene expression that's being regulated by all these mechanisms. And this is ultimately a genetically determined process that you can intervene with, pharmacology wise to actually get in front of it and reduce THC levels and whatnot to inhibit hair loss and kind of keep what you have. But for him, like, I don't think if you see a guy in his 30s losing hair, like, this isn't such an uncommon thing that it's like, oh, it's definitely steroids. It's like, dude, I know people who are balding at fucking 18. So with totally natural. It comes down to your genetics, and ultimately, I think it was probably just his time to start balding. I don't necessarily think that anabolic steroids significantly expedited anything. I think he was just balding, and that's his genetics. But I understand when people see this, they just, they're associating it with what they're speculating and using it as a reinforcing justification. But the thing that's interesting, though, is how I feel like in this video, he's being singled out a bit for something that a lot of guys in the league have access to. It's not like this shit is prohibitively expensive to the point where only LeBron would be able to afford it, and yet it's making it seem like every other superstar does not have access to this because they're not recovering the same way he is. And I'm like, tons of fucking dudes are using the same shit. There's like, so either like, it's a lot of this is going to come down to everyone's using shit. So it's like LeBron being able to recover faster than other people is a token to his genetics and his response potentially to the drugs, as well as just his adherence to being committed to being the best player he can and maximizing his injury recovery time and all of his, staying on point, with his diet, his lifestyle, everything. So it's not like he's the only dude that has access to some of this shit, like it's not that hard to get.
Cramping. The NBA knew they needed to look further into this. Back in 2013, an investigation into a steroid clinic in Miami found that a man by the last name of Paul would come to pick up products for a man with the initials LJ. LeBron's initials are LJ, and his agent's name is Rich Paul. This is the same clinic that in 2013 outed numerous MLB, NBA, and NFL players for their steroid use. Also, a lady that worked at the clinic, specifically their financial transfers, says that many of her coworkers are 100% sure that LJ was LeBron. But as much as you could connect the dots, this is all just speculation. However, this wasn't even the most suspect PED-related event in Bron's career. Back in 2014, when LeBron rejoined the Cavs, you may recall him not looking or playing the same as years past. He had to cut all that weight he gained while in Miami and was back to 250 pounds. He said he felt better than ever. Yet, as the season got started, it was clear that he wasn't the same athlete. He wasn't as explosive or strong as he was just one season prior. And, well, that's pretty normal, I guess. Time goes along, athletes get slower, and you may find a way to get an extra hop in your step, such as losing weight. But it just so happens that around the same time period, the NBA was pushing to reform their testing on steroids and PEDs. It is speculated that LeBron had to fast and rid his system of all those performance enhancers he was taking over those past few years.
Dude, do you think drug clearance takes 2 years? Like, no. The shit he's using, if it took that long to get out of his system, there's no chance he would ever use it. You're subject to random testing in the NBA. However lax it is, you're still subject to random testing potentially. I believe right now it's like 4 tests in the off season, 4 in the season and 2 in the off season, and half of those can be HGH tests. So it's like 2 in the regular season and then 1 HGH test in the off season. And then obviously if there's like reasonable cause to assume that you're using something because, I don't know, they've been tipped off or whatever, then you might get tested more than that. But it's like, there's no guarantee you're gonna get tested. First of all, they do a certain amount of tests and they're randomized. And you could go like a shit long time without getting tested, but still, in 2 years, like you would never ever use something that's not going to be out of your system very, very quickly. This is like saying he had like nandrolone decanoate in his system from 2 years ago and he had to go on a fast. Like, why the fuck would you ever use that drug to begin with? Like, you wouldn't. No sane person would ever recommend to use a drug that takes more than a few fucking literally days. You would not use something that takes more than even hours ideally, So I don't get what this is even, who's speculating this, This makes no sense whatsoever scientifically.
Again, this is speculation though, not fact. But then during the middle of the season, LeBron took 2 weeks off while the Cavs were struggling to go back to Miami to revitalize and rejuvenate. Now, is it just a coincidence that LeBron went down to Miami in the middle of the season because he needed some mental and physical rest? Possibly. And while this wouldn't be so hard to believe, if LeBron didn't come back from the trip more explosive and energized than ever before, it just doesn't add up. Sure.
Yeah, so he probably went and got a bunch of peptide injections, probably got a bunch of rehabilitation stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of it was performance enhancing, but some of this shit is not even being tested for. BPC 157, one of the best injury recovering agents, not being tested for. There's a lot of this shit that's totally legal within the rules that can help you as an athlete still to use. And then a lot of the shit that is very useful, there are not actual good tests yet even developed to detect them within a reasonable time frame. So it's pretty obvious that a lot of guys are using a lot of this stuff.
Sure, LeBron spends $1.5 million on his body every year. Yes, he takes his health and wellness very seriously, but so do most professional athletes. I know LeBron is the definition of a freak of nature, but aren't most pro athletes incredible athletes in their own right? And
yeah, so like, are we implying that he's literally the only guy who has access to like some specialty fucking drug center that has special drugs just for LeBron and no one else can get them? Like, obviously not. Everyone's using the same shit if they know about it or have good advisement, or, you know, it kind of depends. And it depends on the budget and the access and the connections and a lot of stuff. But ultimately, it's not like LeBron is the only top athlete that has access to a lot of very well-known compounds, some of which aren't being tested for. So probably everyone's using a lot of the same shit.
And don't a lot of them spend an immense amount of time and money on their health and wellness? Why is LeBron the only player that can play 82 games in his 15th season, lead the league in minutes played, average better numbers than he ever has in his entire career, and not sustain even a minor injury?
Because he's the best fucking player in the world. Like, that's why, dude. Everyone is doing, that's like saying, why does Phil Heath take however many grams of steroids and then Joe Blow down your street takes the exact same cycle and looks like goddamn dog shit? It's because of genetics. One is a fucking specimen and one isn't. And that's what's going to determine how they respond to drugs and or how they perform, even irrespective of the drug. The same reason LeBron is the best, you know, phenom athlete ever is the same reason he has better longevity than a lot of other guys.
There just seems to be a missing piece to this equation. And again, I am the biggest LeBron fan there is. Growing up, the guy was my idol. I mean, I shaped my whole game around his.
A lot of this is luck too. Like, it's not like if somebody has an injury and they fall on their leg weird or something, it's not like your access to drugs like made you not fall weird. You know what I mean? Like, obviously athleticism and a lot of shit comes into play, but if you're in the air and you get blindsided by some guy flying through the fucking air and like hits you out of your dunk or some shit and you fall on your neck and fucking break it, it's, you know, this, a lot of this comes down to luck too. And he's just fortunate that he hasn't encountered a career-ending injury or something. And he's also a very durable player, and he clearly invests a lot of resources into ensuring he's as durable as possible. So yeah, that probably involves some sort of drug use. However, it also is his genetics and his lifestyle and his genetic response to all of the factors mentioned already.
And to this day, he is still by far my favorite player in the league. In fact, he's my favorite athlete of all time. But sometimes you just have to critically think about these things. And I want to be clear, steroids don't just make you a great athlete. Your average basketball player can't just take steroids and instantly become an NBA player. But what PEDs can do is push you that extra little bit, that almost seamlessly insignificant amount that can push a great player to a phenomenal player. Now, you may be thinking, if LeBron was using performance enhancing drugs, the NBA would have caught on to him a long time ago. And you may be correct, but consider this. There are two main types of drug tests: blood testing and urine testing. Urine testing being the test of choice since traces of these performance enhancing drugs linger around longer in the urine than they do in the blood. Or something like that. I'm not a scientist. In order to catch an athlete using a PED, a lab would first have to know the exact makeup of that its metabolites. Basically, a testing lab can only identify if a PED was used if they first know it exists.
So right now we're talking about synthetic compounds using gas chromatography with mass spectrometry, which is not really relevant to even the compounds. Well, the main compound that we'd be talking about is HGH, which would be detected using an isoform test. This is not something you're going to use a urine analysis with GCMS. You're going to be looking for synthetic metabolites, nandrolone, fucking boldenone, dianabol, stuff like this, all that kind of shit. You know, stimulants, beta-2 agonists, fucking diuretics, you know, whatever the fuck. You're gonna be looking for all this shit in the urine. Yeah, but the main thing that I think most NBA athletes are leveraging is human growth hormone, which is essentially undetectable despite the fact that they claim that it is scientifically, you know, sound, which, to be honest, it is sort of sound. The problem is the detection time is so short that it's basically impossible to catch anyone. And in addition to that, they're using an isoform ratio to detect exogenous HGH administration, which can be easily manipulated when HGH is not that hard to manufacture nowadays. And it's not that hard to find manufacturers who are potentially able to manipulate the isoform profiles and ratios in order to be congruent with beating any drug test at any fucking time, regardless if they showed up right at the correct time or not. And even if they showed up, you know, at the correct time, the NBA testing parameters are set up in such a silly way where you can essentially get around it anyways. Like, this is the NBA collective bargaining agreement, and in the anti-drug program, you'll find in the random drug testing section. Testing. So as you know, in the season, you can get tested 4 times randomly, up to 4 times. You might get not even tested though. So there's that. And then of the tests that you get randomly tested, you can be tested up to 2 times for growth hormone. And in the off season, you can be tested up to 1 time for growth hormone. And the detection time is fucking low. Very, very low. And when it comes to random drug testing, during each season, the NBA will conduct no more than 1,525 total tests. During the offseason, the NBA will conduct no more than 600 total tests. Now, the interesting thing is even if you say no to getting drug tested, you can actually still just chill and let the compound clear out of your system, which is kind of fucked up, and I didn't even realize till I looked into this. So, basically, where is the thing here? If a player refuses to submit to a test or cooperate fully with the testing process without a reasonable explanation satisfactory to the medical director or the SPED medical director for testing under the SPED program only, provided, however, that the NBA will use its best efforts, A, to have the drug testing collectors immediately notify the NBA when any player refuses to submit to a test or cooperate fully with the testing process, and B, to provide such information to the Players Association as soon as possible thereafter, and provided further that C, following any player's refusal to submit to a test or failure to cooperate fully with the testing process, the drug testing collector shall wait 90 minutes at the collection site, and D, if the player submits to the test and cooperates fully with the testing process within the 90 minutes, then his earlier refusal or failure to cooperate shall be excused, and the test shall not be deemed positive under this section. So hypothetically, if you pinned your HGH, and this is like the 22 kilodalton isoform that most people are probably using, or at least people with less connections are probably using. Let's just say hypothetically you get randomly selected, you just fucking chill there and wait for adequate clearance. Like, how, there's a reason why nobody has tested positive for HGH ever in the NBA. Like, if you actually go look at the 35 times people have been suspended in the NBA for drugs, what did it include? Cocaine, substance abuse, banned substance back in 99. I don't even know what that was for, but anyways. Banned substance, phentermine, DHEA, primobolan, which is interesting, Let's see. But this is back in 2013. Novadex, tamoxifen, a selective estrogen receptor modulator. DHEA, again. Marijuana. LGD, 4033. Let's see. Ipamorelin, GHRP2. Ipamorelin, diuretic, peptide. So, again, these guys would have been way better off using bioidentical GH. And no one's tested positive for GH, dude. How many people have tested positive for GH since the isoform test even was invented? Not very many. Like, it has been minimal, to the point where you have guys who are admitting they took GH and still weren't detected, like Mirko Krokop. So that's just to show how, despite the fact that some of this stuff is being tested for, unfortunately, it's not really adequate and satisfactory in order to actually catch these guys using this stuff. So even if it, and to be like, I don't give a fuck if they use whatever they use, to be honest. Like, I think this stuff should all be legal. If you can use something to prevent you from getting injured and to improve your injury recovery time and make it less likely that you snap a fucking ankle, like, by all means, dude. But at the end of the day, the testing parameters for some of this stuff is subpar still, to the point where it might as well be irrelevant, to be honest.
So if a PED is untested and unknown, the athlete taking it can and will get away with using it. This is important because of one thing: designer drugs, or drugs that are specifically made to pass these tests. Not only are they made to pass these tests, but they are constantly being reformulated and re-engineered to stay ahead of the testing curve.
Now, is anyone using things like the Clear or synthetic designer anabolics in the NBA? No, they're not. No one's shutting down their HPTA in order to use a designer anabolic steroid in the NBA. That would be dumb. However, you know, designer drugs like designer HGH products that have not the kilodalton variant that is literally the test is designed for, that is already inaccurate at picking it up. Now, that's the kind of thing that would qualify as a designer drug in the NBA that might actually make sense to deploy. There are other things that can enhance your hematology profile, like I said, that they're not testing for. Things that are not just your basic EPO. So there's a lot of different ways, different vectors that people are leveraging from what I suspect that aren't the traditional what you would think when you think of designer Frankenstein like steroid drug like the Clear. That's not what people are doing, in my opinion, in this sport in particular.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of money. You can literally get performance enhancing drugs tailored to your specific needs. Also, the NBA is known for having the worst drug testing and drug test protocol of all professional sports.
I don't know about that. It's not great at all. It's not very good, but I mean, I wouldn't say it's the worst, to be honest.
It always has and probably always will.
Like, I guess in certain ways you could argue, yeah, but in other ways you could argue that it's not the worst. But anyway.
In the last 10 years, only 6 NBA players have been caught using performance-enhancing drugs. Over that same time period, 43 MLB players have been caught using PEDs or steroids. I mean, in 2014 alone, the NFL suspended 29 players for using PEDs before the season even started. And let's be honest.
You also have to consider the choice of compounds, though. You're pretty much lumping PEDs all into one category. Is what you're going to use for football going to be the exact same thing you'd use for golf? Is it the same thing you'd use for fucking archery? No, like, you're not going to use a fucking beta blocker in the NFL. So comparing one league to another, it's like, yeah, some of the testing parameters might be looser in terms of how often they're testing, if it's random or not. Yeah, but in addition to that, you have to understand that some compounds, it's like, what sport gets the most positive tests? Like, I'm actually pretty sure it's archery off the top of my head, because some of the compounds they need to use are just more detectable. If they're synthetic compounds that are more detectable, and that's what they need in order to enhance their performance for their sport, that becomes a harder thing to get around. Whereas in the NBA, if the main thing that would help is HGH, which is like the hardest fucking thing to test for, like, why do you think so little people are popping? It's because they can't even fucking test for what they're using. So I think there's that plays into it too, is the actual drug selection for the sport in particular. Like, what you need as a linebacker does not equate to what you need as a point guard, obviously.
The amount of money that's on the line, how many athletes are willing to take performance enhancing drugs to get even a slight edge? Somehow LeBron has defied all notions of time and regression as if he's somehow immune to it. But he isn't. He's human just like the rest of us. Which leads me into my last point. Even if the NBA knew LeBron was on some sort of performance enhancement, I honestly don't think they would do anything about it. LeBron has surpassed superstar status. He is a sports icon. He brings in an absurd amount of revenue to the league, and he's everything you could want in a role model.
That too. There's a lot of financial motivation behind some of the reasonable, cause for testing people. Maybe you don't want to go after a guy who is one of your biggest money makers. That's a very logical conclusion, and I believe probably plays a strong deciding factor in who gets tested. Because you have to think too, in the NBA, you're not even guaranteed to get tested. Even though it's random, the randomization is, who knows if it can be politically motivated or not? Who knows if it's something that, maybe you won't even get fucking tested throughout the entire year. Maybe there's a way to know that beforehand. You don't know, it's not like this shit is published for us to find out. So yeah, that is definitely correct. And it seems like the NBA, definitely could step up a lot in their drug testing parameters if they wanted to be taken a bit more seriously in this area.
A family man, great leader and teammate. In 15 years, he's never had any off-the-court issues. He's just as much of an asset to the league as he is to his team. And I truly think the NBA would avoid ruining his career by any means necessary. He simply means too much to the sports and to the business that is the NBA. But, we have to ask ourselves, does it even matter? The reason we pay to watch NBA games instead of going to our local rec gym and watching some scrubs play is because NBA players are big and strong and fast. They do things we could only dream of doing. And at the end of the day, the NBA is just a league for entertainment. Yes, for the players, it's more than that, but for us fans, that's what it boils down to. So I ask myself, if I am being entertained, does it really matter what's going on behind the scenes? I think what this guy commented pretty much sums this entire theory up. I want to watch superheroes play basketball, not regular people. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, until next time.
Yeah, so that was a good video. It had a lot of good points in it. The actual pharmacology information obviously lacking a bit, as well as the drug test parameters, and that's kind of where my expertise comes in more. But overall, I understand the points, and I also agree, if I'm being entertained in a sport where it's not like they're trying to actually kill each other and take off each other's heads or anything, what do I care if a guy's using some fucking HGH to not have to improve bone integrity? Why would it bother me? I want these guys to stay healthy and perform, so that would be my logic as a NBA, commissioner dude, whatever the fuck the position would be. So that is my stance on it. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. Please subscribe if you want to get more deep dives into performance enhancing pharmacology and whatnot. I have a lot of videos relevant to this kind of subject in different sports and whatnot, different superstars, different things of that nature. So subscribe. Like the video if you don't mind, and comment. Helps the algorithm, and it's much appreciated when you guys do. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, it's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. We have qualified patient care coordinators and doctors who have been vetted by myself personally, who represent the highest quality information in the field, who will be able to take a look at your blood work, address any imbalances or deficiencies, and create a personalized protocol just for you if warranted, based upon your own health status. And the medications are all shipped right to your door, so it's super convenient. I think it is the way of the future, telemedicine, and I'm happy to be able to bring it to you guys and bring high quality care to my audience, as well as Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode pre-workout formulas I designed myself from scratch. I recommend lab test panels and anything else I'm associated with. It's all in the video description below. Follow me on social media at @moreplates_more_dates. I'm also on Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, quite a few places. They're all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.